We'll call the November 11th regular meeting of the North Lamar Board of Trustees to order at 6 p.m., showing all board members present. We'll move to item number 2, the invocation and pledge of allegiance, led by David Darby.
Lord, I just thank you for letting us live in a country that's free, and it's free because of veterans. And Lord, we just ask that you would bless them, Lord, and that you would just continue to help our country prosper and to grow. We just pray that you be with North Lamar. And thank you for the volunteers and the staff, Lord, and everybody that just cares and loves about North Lamar. We just pray that you would be with this meeting, and you would just allow it to go according to your will and your purpose. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mr. Scarborough.
All right, and leading our pledges this evening are 3 drum majors, Tony Shelton, Christy Miles, and Bonnie Dahl.
Oh. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, item number 3, recognition of students.
Okay, and that segues into our first student recognition tonight. I don't remember half the date, but I'm sure they can tell us here in a minute. Saturday in October, band went out. They won the Grammy Championship at a contest in Mineola, and then turned around about 96 hours later and got a 1 rating at the regional competition. Correct? Very good. And so that was largely their season this year, but fantastic job. So Mr. Smith, Mr. Jones, who's here tonight from the band?
We have Texas Darby. In the back, we met our 3 drum makers, Bonnie, Stoney, and Christy. We also have McKenna Miller, and we have Jeremy and and Gibson. Thank you.
Thank you guys. They're not on here because they're actually practicing, and there's some of that doing it cross country, but with our choir, and their coach, Mr. Rebecca Woodruff, is here. There's like 17 kids on the region choir. Did I say that correct?
Yes.
So who's here tonight?
Tonight representing are Raymond Holdred, Amanda Dean, Sean Gibbs, McKenna Miller, Bonnie Dahl, and Gibson Dice.
Thank you guys. And so next is cross country. They won district and then finished 19th at regional. And Nine. Thank you. Sorry. Coach Byers here. Thank you.
Thank y'all so much for supporting our program, and we're just trying to get on position. It was Chadwick started with her and her dad several years ago. We won't know how old. I have with me tonight Emery Bludson, Addison Excellent, and Hayden Stu. And we did place 9th at the regional meet. Only 22 schools made it that far, and there's a lot of school districts that did not make it, so we're very proud.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Kate's, I didn't see you there. Kate's also in band.
And then also here tonight, this team took 1st and 2nd, say that right, at the district competition, and then took 13th at the area. Coach Pinwell from the wildlife team is here to introduce us guys.
We have Bo Rimber, Remington, Maverick Brown, Andy Kirk, and Cody Osmond.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 4, public testimony. No one signed up this meeting for that, so we'll skip to item 5, consent agenda. We'll need a motion to approve this consent agenda.
I so move.
Motion made by Sheila, second by Bo. Is there any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. We're going to move on to item 6, action and discussion items. We're going to skip to item J, consideration and approval of the 2018-19 North Lamar ISD financial audit.
Good evening. I'm Jonna McNeil with Mountaineer McNeil & Company, and
And hopefully in your packets before the meeting, you all got a copy of the audit report. Everyone get to see it. And inside that would have been an executive summary that kind of guides you through the audit packet so that you can kind of go through it at your leisure, and helps you kind of understand what the different financials are. Did anyone have any specific questions that you want to direct first to get out of the way from your review of it, or do you want me to just kind of get some highlights for you? Okay. All right. So if you look on, we'll start with page 10, but just while you're turning there, your opinion on your financial statements is an unmodified opinion, and so that's the best opinion that you can get. And with inside your report, you'll find 3 different reports. Your just regular normal audit report, then you will find one that's based on government auditing standards, and then you'll find a single audit report that has to do with compliance with some of your federal programs. But if you look on page 10, this is your statement of net position. And this statement, if you look at the places, and you can't tell exactly which lines they are, but within your executive summary, these spots that I have highlighted in yellow, so they'll kind of give you a target, those are the places in your financials that are liabilities or small assets related to those liabilities that have to be put on your financials related to pensions and other post-employment benefits. So over the last few years, we've been talking about the effect of the fact that the GASB made all districts, all governmentals that have shared retirement plans like what you guys do, put your proportionate share of the unfunded liability on your books. And so this particular financial statement is big enough to kind of absorb that because it has your assets, so your buildings, and it also has your debt on it. But your equity that you have in your buildings and other assets kind of helps buffer the fact that you have had to put, $15 million in debt on your books. That is debt that you can't pay down early, you can't do anything with it. And every district in the state of Texas is in the same boat that you are. They're all part of TRS. It's all, and there's an unfunded amount that says if we drew a line in the sand today and everyone that has retirement coming to them, if we had to give them that money, we don't have enough to do that. It's the same situation too, they talk about Social Security, that if everybody stopped working today and we had to give the money out to everyone that is going to get it, well then there's not enough money there to do that. So I just always each year want to go over that liability with you so that you understand what those numbers are on the financial statement, because it is one of the most confusing accounting entries that we have to make, and it makes your financial statement look like you have a lot more liability than what you actually do, okay? But in governmental accounting, your financials are done on 2 methods, the full accrual method, which is this page, and then we have the modified accrual method, which is, we'll talk about that in a minute, which is how you budget and what assets you have that you can use to do something with, okay? So if you pulled the financials, you got on TEA's website, you pulled other districts just like you, they have the same type of liability on their books that comes straight from what's happening with TRS. And the other post-employment benefit, the one we call OPEB, that has to do with the health insurance. And it's even a larger dollar amount than what the pension amount is. And that's because anyone that teaches, that has taught and is about to retire, they can tell you pretty much what their retirement check is going to be for the rest of the time, except for small raises that might be given or something like that. They pretty much know, and everybody knows that. Now, we don't know for sure how long they're going to live and all that, but statistically, we can calculate some of those things. The reason that the other post-employment benefit that has to do with the insurance is so high is that we don't know if that retiree is going to have cancer or have a heart problem, or if they're going to have, what is going to happen, and we don't know and are not in control of what those medical costs are going to be. the legislature is in control of what your retirement is going to pay you. So they can flatten that out. But they can't do anything about the rising cost of health care and manage that. And so that's the reason that number is so much higher. But that's what those two items are. But outside of that financial, that's a little shocking when you look at those numbers. Let's look at page 12. And this is the way that, this is the financial statement that is your balance sheet that is on the way that you budget. It doesn't have your buildings in the assets. It doesn't have your whole debt in the liability, because you budget each year to pay what payment you would have on what debt you have. And that's how you budget, not the long term. It's, you know, what tax revenue you have coming in this year to cover that. And then your assets are, this financial statement doesn't say your buildings are worth this or they have this much depreciation, because we talk about just the short-term type of assets that you have: cash, taxes receivable, money that's owed to you from the state, those types of things. And this one, the first column, that's your general fund, shows you what your fund balance is. And it's $8.4 million for your general fund. And for a district your size, $8.4 million is considered to be, it's a healthy fund balance. It's not too big, it's not too small. If you had everything taken care of that you want to take care of, if you were in a position that all your buildings were like you wanted them to be, that your equipment was like you wanted it to be, that your bus inventory was where you wanted it to be, then we would say that your $8 million fund balance is a good fund balance. You just have to weigh your fund balance with the hill that you have to climb and what you have before you as to whether or not you have needs that you're going to need to use that fund balance to pay for, or do you have other methods to get that via a loan, some type of borrowing to pay for those things. And so I know you guys are constantly weighing those options and looking at that. So we like for the fund balance to cover at least 3 months of operating. If you look at what TEA will say, they put a lot of other factors into it, and they usually cut you a little bit short of that. So TEA's calculation of your optimal fund balance might be somewhere around 5 or 6 million, because you don't have an amount inside the fund balance here, like under committed fund balance. Let's say that you know that your 5-year long-range plan includes that you have to replace 10 buses, and you don't want to have to borrow money for that. So you know that that's coming, so you can commit some of your fund balance to cover that. So that shows the users of your financial statements and yourself that you're planning ahead to say, these are the things that we need to do with our fund balance. And so when we met with the superintendent and the finance director, we talked about that 5-year kind of long-range plan of how you need to fund anything that you need to replace. And whether that would be some type of a loan that you would get for busing, or if it would be a loan for any type of repairs that you need to make to your buildings, or if it is something that you feel like that you need to have fund balance to cover. And in your executive summary, I'm sure that you've had other people that have talked to you about it and visited with you, but I did put inside that executive summary a chart that showed you how your fund balance has gone over the last several years and what your attendance has been over those years, and then what your state funding has been over those years. So just some places to give you some tools sometime when you're thinking about how ADA affects your state funding and how your fund balance fluctuates through the years, because your highest fund balance probably within the last 10 years or so has been about $12 million, and you're at 8 now, so it just kind of lets you see where that, the effects of some of that. Your column that you have here that's called your other governmental column, that covers all other funds that you have, like your debt service, well, you don't have a debt service fund anymore, but your food service fund or your special revenue funds, your co-op, those funds are all in there because none of them are big enough to require them to have a column by themselves. But that's why everything is kind of pushed into that one fund there together. Your general fund balance, I think, is okay. You know, it's healthy. Your co-op fund balance is high right now. Several years ago, during the process of some of the co-op consulting and stuff, we had talked about that co-op maybe having a $250,000, $300,000 fund balance. And the co-op gets a lot of SHARS money and students' health money. Basically, it's services that we provide to students that Medicare will cover. And so these reports are sent out, we send them in, and they go through kind of a medical billing type of situation, and then we get paid back some of that money for providing those services. And we book that charge revenue on a cash basis because we've had a few years where we get a little bit, but something builds up, and then just like this last year, you'll get kind of a windfall. You'll get $300,000 or $400,000 maybe at one time. And so in the past, that charge money has been left in there kind of as a cushion so that if we had a child or a situation that was severe and profound, we had some issue that we really had to work, had to spend some money and that we didn't know that we were going to have, we weren't necessarily able to plan for that, that we wouldn't have to go back to the member districts and say, oh, we need more money. Some co-ops do that. Some co-ops, they give all the money back at the end of the year. Next year, everybody pulls their money together. If we need more, we ask for more. If you have extra, you give it back at the end of the year. So it's no one way is right or wrong. It's just how your co-op agreement is set. But just so when you think about that in the future, you will be looking at that fund balance and how those funds need to be spent, and you can kind of know that sometimes that SHARS money it's very unpredictable. And so this last year I think we got some that came from maybe 2016, 17, and 18. You know, we got 3 years of some back billings. We were still getting money every month also, but that's happened a couple of times. So that's why your fund balance is up there in that a little bit high, and there are options on how you can spend that money. It can be spent on special education, or it can be given back to the member districts in accordance with your co-op plan. Your executive summary explained the two methods of accounting that are in here and the reconciliations that get you from those two methods of accounting. I know that it is a very complicated part of our accounting structure. And if any of you at any time have any questions about that, you just want to get a better understanding about it, you want to talk about it, please just call me, come by the office, we can sit down, we can go through these financials, look at it, answer your questions specifically that you have about the governmental accounting and how it works, because it is one of the more complicated structures. On page 14, you'll see the revenues and expenditures, the way that you guys budget. And so this is the complementary financial statement to that balance sheet. So the balance sheet shows you your assets and liabilities. This one shows you your revenues and expenditures. And if you look down towards the bottom where I have the highlighted numbers, you'll see that your fund balance changed by $44,000. So that means that it increased. So you finished the 2019 year with $44,000 more revenues in your general fund than you had in expenditures. So it's a really tight budget there on your revenues and expenditures. And I believe you had budgeted a balanced budget. So you budgeted for your revenues to equal your expenses. And so that's some good planning there to how that worked out. And then you'll see over in your other governmental funds, they had a similar little bit of an increase, but those other governmental funds are very restricted funds. They're given to you for a specific purpose, have to be used for that purpose, and so those budgets are more statutory and are more set for you within those different types of funds. Page 16 is your student activity fund. There is a change that is coming to accounting standards, and so we're in the process of going through that right now. It's a new GASB that's out right now for this year. Student activity money, you see the cash that's in the account and the amount that's due to the student activity. And we talked about this a little bit last year. We've known this GASB was coming and this change was coming, but it's finally here. So for the 2020 year, you will have a revenue and expense statement that goes with the student activity statement. The GASB, through 30 years of my career, we used to have a revenue and expense statement for the student activities, and they said, no, we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to say, this is money that you are custodian of, you have fiduciary responsibility over, but it's student money. So we're just going to say how much of your cash that you have on hand belongs to those students. Now the GASB has reversed itself, and they've said, no, you're going to have to put more information in there. So now you're going to have a revenue and expenditure statement that goes with it, and that's requiring some new accounting at the districts. And especially like at your high school, which has a lot of student activity. In the past, they have not had to track that revenue and expense by, let's say, fees to the students for a membership, or like if you had a fundraiser, or if somebody gave a donation to the ag department or something, to the FFA. We haven't had to break those things down. And then in the expenditures, we haven't had to show whether that money was spent, say, for some type of national or state dues, or if it was for travel, or if it was meals, or if it was for supplies, or some type of projects or competitions, or whatever those things were. And so if you hear some grumblings and groanings about, oh my goodness, we're having to do this, we're having to start tracking this, we've got to start getting this approved and that approved and things like that, just know that the end result is that on the next year's financials, there's a lot more detail with regards to those types of funds than what has previously had to be included in the financial statement. And we can't wait until June 30th of 2020 to pull that information together. It has to be happening as we go along and trying to get that put inside the financial statement. There's another accounting standard that's coming regarding leases, and so if you guys ended up, say, leasing a fleet of buses, it's really like a lease purchase, something like that. It'll change. There'll be some new accounting standards about that, but Melissa will be on top of that. So the new standard requires some kind of strange accounting, but it's no reason not to do them. It's just more ways that number crunchers crunch numbers that makes it harder for people to understand sometimes, So in your notes of the financial statements, there's really not anything that is new or different. Over the last few years, we've seen those notes change a lot. They've gotten thicker. There's more information in there about how that OPEB liability and that pension liability are calculated. And if you think a CPA will put you to sleep, just read all that actuarial data in there, because that really gets fun, But it's in there in case you're wondering, and if you're a retired teacher, then you can dig into this and you can look about how that liability is calculated and the mortality rates and all of that. On page 42, you'll see your budget to actual calculation, and this report is required to be put in your financials, because when you have your budget and you set that budget, you have budget hearings, you have notices, you tell everybody you're setting the budget, okay? And so that's your original budget that you adopt. And then you can amend the budget during the year. But this is how the GASB holds us accountable for if we've amended the budget too much. So like if we adopt a budget that we didn't put much thought in it because we said, hey, let's not worry about it, we can just amend it later. Well, this is where it shows if you amended it later. And I haven't seen the exact way they're going to calculate it, but our first rating is going to be effective this next year by how much we vary from our budget. Have you also heard that calculation? Your financial integrity rating system, that's your first rating that says if you're an A, a B, a C, and you get points for this and points taken away for that. Well, one of those new point systems has to do with how much you vary between your budget items. And so it used to be, as long as you didn't go over your budget, everything was good. But now they want to see that you're not moving things too much of a percentage within your budget. And so, are they giving us a pass on that for this year, Melissa, do you know? I don't know. There are some things on the new first rating that they are giving us a pass on for the first year. And then they're saying, but it's coming. And I can't remember if that's one of the ones that it is going to be like that or not. But just to know that when Melissa's saying, no, we can't do budget amendments too much. We got to get it as close as we can or something like that. But that's what we want to make sure that we, since we know how the game is scored, we want to try to play to make sure we can get as high a score as possible in the end. But your budget variances and all, there was no problem this year. It all looked really good. You guys have all seen your tax collection schedule. This isn't required by GASB. It's something that the state of Texas requires, and they use this information for some of your calculations. But if you're just interested in general in your historical tax collection over the last 10 years, you can look at this and it will tell you how the year's tax collections went. And even though you guys don't have a debt service anymore, so you don't have any debt that you have to pay for with a bond, or any bond that you have to pay debt with a levy, you still will have debt money that will trickle in. And so your debt service fund has gone away, but as that money comes in at the appraisal district that is from 2 years ago or 3 years ago that people now are paying their taxes, you still get that money divided into those two numbers. And so Melissa has sub-objected the general ledger so that she can see, this is your regular tax dollars that's coming in, this is your tax dollars that's coming in that is that old debt service money. So that's still being tracked in case anybody ever asks you, well, what happens to now that you don't have this debt that you have to pay with the tax levy, what happens to the tax money that comes in from that? And so now that's what we're doing, is sub-objecting it on your general ledger. On page 52, this report is required to be included for TEA. They want to know how your lunch program is doing. They have restrictions on us as how much we have to charge for lunch, for meals, and the meal money is very restricted. You can't use it for any other purposes. And we get very often, we have compliance reviews related to food service. But this will just let you know that the way that your food service ended for the year, your fund balance went down just a little bit, not a lot. So you have a little bit of a fund balance. You're allowed to have 3 months of operating in your fund balance. So you're good with that. And we just always want districts to watch with their food service and see how they're doing and how it's coming out, what their expenses are, make sure that you're charging everything to food service that you can, and do what you can to keep that participation up, because it's something that can be really, it can sneak up on you fast when participation goes down. But your food service staff, if they're not on top of it, to cut back on the amount of food that they're cooking and that kind of thing. And so it's just always nice to make sure that you're watching it and you're staying on top of it, especially in times where if your enrollment is declining. And so people are used to ordering this much because that's how much they had, or if the kids were eating and now they're not, that kind of thing. I want to visit with you a little bit about internal controls, because with inside your financials this year, you have a material weakness in your internal controls. And internal controls from an audit standpoint are sometimes very confusing, because as auditors, we audit your numbers, so the financial side of it, then we study your internal controls. We don't give you an opinion on them, but we study them to help us know how to better test what we need to do and how to make recommendations to you to help protect the district. And we rate deficiencies. You can have a deficiency, you can have a significant deficiency, or you can have a material weakness. So a deficiency means, we saw something, it was a problem, we can put it in writing, or we can just talk about it, we can talk to management about it. It doesn't have to go to the level of governance. If it's a significant deficiency, then that one we have to put in writing, and so we have to talk about it, and then we have to present it, and we have to keep kind of talking about it until we get it cleared up, if it's a significant deficiency. And if it's a material weakness, we also have to talk about it, put it in your financial statement, and not in your statement, but in your report. The difference between what they are is basically, with a material weakness, there is a reasonable possibility that something could go wrong and not get caught in the normal course of staff performing their duties. So I know that's to say a lot, but what gets confusing about it is that you can have a material weakness and nothing went wrong. You were just exposed to the disease enough that you could have caught it. Or, in a compliance situation, if we have a compliance finding, that tells you there was an error, we found an error, because it was a compliance issue that we had to test for. But on an internal control, it's really just saying that based on what we saw, the design or operation of your controls was not sufficient to prevent, detect, deter, or correct a material error in the normal course of people doing their assigned function. And so in here, I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to really read through your finding, but basically in general, with the loss of key staff during parts of the year, there were functions that just did not happen. There were controls that there was no one here to do that job. There wasn't anyone assigned to that function. And one of the key ones is, say, a bank reconciliation. If a bank reconciliation doesn't get done every month and it doesn't get done timely, you're going to have an internal control weakness, because there's just so much that happens with controlling that bank reconciliation and making sure that no one took money out of your account that shouldn't have took money out of your account, that everyone that was supposed to put money in your account, like Texas Education Agency, that they put the money in that they were supposed to, and that all of the deposits that were made throughout the district reconciled out to the amount that was supposed to be deposited. And so also there is a lot of procedures that happen at the end of every month that have to do with closing out the financial statements, checking the accounts receivables, checking the accounts payables, making sure that our accruals are right, that our payrolls are right, that our payroll tax liabilities are paid timely, and all of those things that happen. And we need segregation of duties within that. We all want to trust, but we all need to verify to make sure that no one made a mistake or something didn't, slip through the cracks, that kind of thing. And so that's basically the gist of your material weakness. And the loss of your superintendent and the loss of your business manager during that period of time between January and May, when Melissa came on, and then you also got your new superintendent, up and running and looking at journal entries and getting kind of more hands-on with the financials. There was a weakness during that period of time. Now, I know that since that time, you'll see in the corrective action plan that the district has put in the financials, you'll see all the steps and things that you'll see recommendations from us, and then you'll see things that they are already in the process of changing or things that have already been changed. And as a board, you might hear some grumblings about some of that, because as a nature, we as people sort of don't like change. We just like things to make the point of least resistance and go on about doing what we're doing. And that all works really well until something bad happens. I hate to stop and go to the mechanic shop and get my car worked on, because I don't really have time for that. I just want to go. But then when I'm on the side of the road, then I'm looking for who didn't change the oil, or who didn't check my tire pressure, or why am I in this problem? And so these internal controls, monthly maintenance items, things that we do on a regular basis, they may seem like, why do I have to have so many people involved in that, and why is that so important? But in the end, it's what helps you keep things smooth. It helps you make sure that you're getting things right. And I think that that's one of the things that I love about internal controls is I like 2 or 3 minds meeting together, talking about how we protect something and how we make sure that we have adequate controls and adequate protection to keep honest people honest and to keep ourselves as humans from making mistakes, which we all can do. And so I think that your business office is on the right track as far as getting everything in-house and getting control of it and monitoring everything. And I know there will be changes that will be coming even more, as everybody gets settled into what they're doing. But that's the essence of your control. And it's difficult, too, because a material weakness kind of sticks with you for a couple of years. There are some things on your first rating that it will impact. And so the people that are actually here right now that are at the helm are not the ones that created the weakness, but it's the ripple effect that happens from the weakness, and it just takes us a little while to get over that. So just be patient with them and know that I think that they're kind of headed in the right direction. And we're here to help. If there's anything that we can do to help to look at what we're doing with internal controls and what we're doing to make things better, we are fine with working on that throughout the year, because it's better to work on it throughout the year than at the end of the year to look back and go, well, that didn't work. Why did you do it that way? Because if so communication is key through all of this, and I think that that's already kind of happening. We're headed in the right direction. So, any questions that you guys have for me?
When were some of these deficiencies identified? Last spring? I mean, or did all this just happen?
Well, deficiencies
Or problems? I said we identified certain deficiencies in the internal control.
Right.
Did that?
So what we do is when we come in to do the audit, we do what's called a walkthrough. And we pull a sample of transactions. And it's all throughout the district, and so we pull those transactions and we start looking at them and we see if the internal controls were followed. And so, for instance, let's say that we pull a gate receipt and we see that there was a discrepancy between how much it showed was the amount that was taken in at the ball game versus how much was deposited at the bank versus what was in the bank statement. And if the bank reconciliation wasn't done during that process, during that time, then there's a weakness there of it's not timely noted. And sometimes, like let's say it's journal entries. So we're making journal entries to adjust the general ledger. And someone might say, well, let's throw Mr. Watson under the bus. Let's say Mr. Watson's job is to review the journal entry. And somebody says, well, I don't know why you want him to review the journal entry. He's not going to know if that's right or wrong. He doesn't know the difference between the debit and the credit. And maybe you do. So I'm just throwing you under the bus there. But sometimes it's those instances when somebody that is green as a gourd or just doesn't know or whatever, they look at something and they go, why is this way? Why are we doing that? Why doesn't that match? Does that make sense? And the person that you will think would be the last person maybe to find the problem is the one that finds it. They just, for whatever reason. And so even if the position maybe doesn't know as well what the deficiency would be or the problem is, if we're presenting it to someone that has an opportunity to look at it and the opportunity to give it the smell test and ask the question, then it's good. And sometimes you could have some deficiencies that might have existed back before, okay? But maybe they weren't significant, or maybe one of the things is that a material weakness is, by its definition, it is a deficiency or a group of deficiencies or a group of significant deficiencies that in the aggregate could prevent us from detecting, correcting an error. And so with this year, there were just several things that as we pulled to do the testing payroll, and we noted that we had someone that was coded. They were teaching special ed, but they were coded to the general fund, okay? From a compliance standpoint, that's the best. You don't want the opposite. From a compliance standpoint, you don't want to pull a teacher and then be in a regular ed classroom and then be coded to Title I or to, your special education program. So from a compliance standpoint, that's great. But from the district standpoint, where we might be leaving money on the table in our federal programs or our title programs or our special education programs, so we've got a teacher that's teaching in those programs, but we're paying them out of the general fund, it goes the opposite way for that. And so that situation comes about from, we have got to make sure that any time a teacher moves, that they get reassigned, that we want that message coming from all different directions. From the administration office, that teacher may not have any idea what difference it makes that she just got moved from one class to the other, or she was doing this pull out and now she's not, because she may not know how she's funded. But from the administration office, it's crucial, those parts of our internal controls and how that happens. So that's why for this year, there just were not enough eyes on some things during a period of time, or just maybe not enough history in the positions. Because as people are changing over, it takes them a while to get, really set in what they're supposed to do. Sometimes it takes a while just to figure out where your computer is and where you're supposed to do, and read the manual before you can even start trying to determine compliance and how to spend this and how the budget works and that kind of thing.
I have a question for you. You did say we'll be able to track the fund balance, student fund balances next year?
Each student group, you will, right now, we know exactly, like what yours was about 114,000. So out of that 114,000, right now, you can know how much each one of those groups is. But what you don't see in the financials is you had, say, 100,000 at the beginning of the year, and you had 100,000 at the end of the year of student funds. You don't know from what you see inside here right now whether $1 million went in and out of those accounts for the year, or 200,000 went in and out of them for the year.
Right.
But for this next year, within the financials, you will see that. And that requires a little more administration office input into how that coding and everything is going to take place.
So we'll know where the money's going.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to say.
Well, if there's no other questions for me, thank you for allowing us to do the audit. We love working with school districts, and please don't hesitate if you have any questions and it's something that you don't want to take the time to go through tonight. Just call me. We'll go over your financials and look at them more in detail at any time. When it comes time for your budget, if you have questions, just call me. I'm happy to visit with you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to need a motion to approve the audit report made by Bo, seconded by Joel. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. We'll go back to item 6A, attendance and enrollment. Leslie?
Let me give you a brief statement right quick. After the last board meeting, I had a couple of principals, Ms. Malone and Ms. Hughes, came to me and said, hey, you got more numbers than what you reported. So I just want to clarify that they were talking about actual body enrollment, how many students you actually have sitting there. When I'm giving you your enrollment account, we're talking about ADA membership enrollment. That's where we get our funds and stuff from. They're basically the same with the exception of pre-K. You only get half credit or half a day credit for pre-K students. So like at Higgins, if there were 44 pre-K, so you got 44 bodies, but when you look at ADA enrollment, they're just going to have 22 listed because you only get half. And so with them saying that, I just want to clarify that because somebody else might have misunderstood that too. And so what I did on my form this time is I gave you the actual bodies at the first, that's the total student enrollment. And so right now at Higgins, we got 335 students. Everett, 251. Parker, 244. Bailey, 305. Stone, 562. And the high school at 741, which gives a total students in our district of 2,438. Okay? Now, on the ADA enrollment, when we look at those numbers, you'll notice that Higgins is a little less because, again, of the pre-K. From last board meeting to this board meeting, it went down 2.5 students to 313.5. Everett was at 251, which was down by 1 student. Parker was 231, which is up by 4. And Bailey was at 305, up by 1. And Stone, 562, up by 2.5. And then the high school was down 3 at 241, which gets a total ADA number of 2,403.5, which was still 1 more than we had at the last board meeting. So as long as our numbers stay consistent, and on the back of that sheet kind of again tells you the information. The ADA through that November 6th, last Wednesday, was 2,312.69, which is at 96.87% attendance. I think last time it was 97.1 or something like that. So the attendance is down just a little bit, not much. And again, Melissa budgeted for 2,245, so we're still up nearly 68 students. So as long as we keep our ADA enrollment up, it's going to be good for our budget because we're going to be within budget. Okay? Any questions on that?
Okay, item 6B, consideration and approval of proposed change to the 1920 North Carolina ISD Student Handbook.
Kind of talking about attendance here. We want to propose a slight change to our exemption policy. As y'all know, last year our classes met every other day. This year now they're meeting every day. And so we want to add, basically, to make it real short and sweet, 1 more absence per class for kids. You can see on top our current, what's in the handbook, and you can see our proposed. Basically give 1 more absence. You know, these classes would meet 43 times approximately last year. Now they're meeting approximately 80-something times. And this will give a little more leeway. The reason we're coming to y'all with this now is that we wanted to look at some actual data on it. Now we've got 2 6 weeks in the books, and we pull the numbers. This will help more kids get the exemptions. And this has been one of the places I have seen where exemptions work extremely well. I mean, one of the first things kids will ask if there's any discipline involved, will my exemptions be affected? And we have kids come to us frequently, gosh, I don't want to miss out, whether it's a medical note or whatever, on their exemptions. So the exemptions work here, and we want to make it attainable, but also to the point where it's going to be an incentive to be at school.
Now, I see the current, and then down here you have the proposed. Does the proposed also include the no discipline violations?
Yes,
everything.
Yes, everything.
So all of it, the only thing that's changed is those 3 numbers.
That is correct.
Okay.
That's right.
So they still have to not be a discipline issue, not have
correct.
any. Do we need to vote on this? Yes, ma'am. I move that we accept this. I think it'll be
Made by
a good
Sheila,
idea.
seconded by Red. Is there any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
6C, consideration and approval of campus improvement plans. Ms. Miller.
I have to say, it's a movie that I just really enjoyed my first campus improvement. I would almost do all for you, almost. For goal 1, we are a targeted campus, and so we are definitely focusing on growth. We were targeted in 2 populations, white and 2 of them races. We also have a close eye on our Hispanic population. We're not targeted there yet, but 1 more year we could be. So we've made some changes. We've changed our that time to advisory, where we're trying to address more of our Tier 2 students.
For goal 2, our focus is on using and learning how to implement that teacher resource system's performance assessment in order to increase rigor in the classroom. We'll also be looking at growing in our knowledge of PLCs and how we can utilize those to help with our targeted support. For goal 3, our focus is the awareness and prevention of bullying. It's one focus. We've changed our ZAP time to what we now call advisory, and it's allowing Fridays for students to have opportunities to participate in groups such as student council, student ambassadors, STA. It's just trying to give them one way to belong in a different way than maybe what we have in the past. We've developed a multimedia class to help teach lessons to students regarding bullying, social media, and just regular middle school announcements and needs for middle school kids. And the last goal, goal 4, for college and career readiness, we're always looking at different ways to offer some type of class. We're looking at possibly developing or bringing in some CTE classes for the middle school level.
Do you have any questions? Okay. Next is the high school.
Okay, so just mentioned the goals. I'm going to point out one performance objective for each goal so we can kind of keep things moving here. So in goal 1, talking about quality education, if you look at performance objective number 4 in goal 1, talking about using the data in a specific group of our white students in math, we're 2 points from where we want to be. It's come up from the 40s in the last 2 or 3 years, and at that point we'll be at the level that we need to be at. So using our common assessments, using our benchmarks, we're able to target specifically what they need to get to that point. So that's one point out there from goal 1. And goal number 2, talking about providing teachers with instructional programs. There's a couple of things there. The performance objective 2 in goal 2 is what I want to highlight. Is that teachers will participate in a house challenge where we're going to be emphasizing certain tasks based on the themes that will help us get better instructionally. There's some other things in there too I'll talk about here in a second, but let's talk about observing teachers, videoing their lessons, and watching themselves give the lesson, and attending professional development. So what it is, we have kind of a sheet we give out where they get points for what they do. It's kind of like rewarding them for the things we know we do well, and now we're going to kind of compete and see how many we can build up. You know, it's things like I mentioned, observing another teacher, completing all your skeleton plans that you have to do for the entire 6 weeks. There's some other fun things in here. We reward them for eating the cafeteria, so they're out there with the kids and stuff like participating in professional developments, participating in the pep rallies and stuff like that. But it's culture, it's professional development, so that's something there that's in goal number 2. In goal number 3, if you look at performance objective number 2, is creating a quality learning environment. We wanted to create more events that bring more people on campus, see all the good things we have going on. And if you look at performance objective 2 there in goal 3, it's have 3 community events during the school year. It's not limited to, and when we wrote this in the spring, we wrote it as an open house, maybe a parent curriculum night, and what's in the handbook. Well, that's kind of what we've done already this year. When we had our showcase, we hit on a couple of these things already. We had the vape forum recently, kind of educate our community about what's going on. We had the bonfire, get the community out and together for homecoming. And this one literally just came up here in the past week or so. Liv thankfully contacted us about students that needed meals over the holidays. Well, now that's going to turn into a challenge in our A1 classes. It's going to be like, it's just a food bank. We're getting food, kids are bringing it, we're going to give it to Liv thankfully, they're going to pass it out to community members, and really, in a way, kids are going to be feeding themselves within the home building with this food they're bringing. So we're really excited about that. And again, when we wrote this, it's like, how can we get more community involvement? And I want to spend another quick second on this because this one's really exciting. When we first planned the showcase, we doubled our expectation on people that were coming. We did very well in the vape forum, and not very exciting, but we had 20, 25 people there. We weren't expecting that many. With the bonfire, it exceeded our expectations of people involved. And then with Liv, thankfully, there were people contacting us about how they can get involved with us. This is really exciting, I think, to see what all is happening in the community, and this is just kind of an example of that. And then finally, in goal 4, performance objective 2, we did want to add a specific ACT class. We didn't have really our master schedule for that. But as we get into more of this Edgenuity program we have, where I think we're going to be able to find a way that the kids can come to us, we can advertise it, and we can give them an online class to practice during their A1. You know, when they have some downtime, you know, when they're not working, or when they're at home on a computer, so they can help prepare for these things. So.
Questions?
Just fun to talk to you. That's good.
That's gotcha.
Okay, we're gonna need a motion to,
I move we accept that.
okay, motion made by
Plan.
Sheila, seconded by Bo. Is there any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item 6E, consideration and approval longevity incentive for employees. Did I skip D?
Yeah.
What did I say?
D is district improvement.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So now for the district improvement plan, which you know are the same goals, the same 4 goals, and I'll just point out a few of the performance objectives and strategies that are addressed within this. In goal 1, academic success, the performance objective 1, we are talking about at least 85% passing rate on all subjects for all students. The strategies that will be addressed are interventions, RTI, tutorials, summer school, instructional support to teachers through instructional coaches, student performance assessment and writing after every unit. That's a new, we're doing, you may have heard of PAs, I don't know, but performance assessments is a new piece to our curriculum this year. It involves increasing the rigor to the level of the state standard. Vertical writing committees to establish district-wide writing guidelines. We've already had a few meetings and we've already written a draft proposal of those guidelines. In goal 2, if you'll look at performance objective 1, we continue to do training in instructional technology because we believe that that's the way we're going to reach more students, teaching them the way that they will engage the most. Leadership staff will be trained in running effective professional learning communities. We've been doing that some, but we would like to have a systemic program in professional learning communities. And all of that through Title II funds, along with purchasing materials for professional development activities. And then in goal 3, if you'll look at performance objective 1, opportunities for students to participate in activities to promote positive healthy behavior, which is so critical. Some of those things Clay just went over that they're doing at the high school. Also programs such as DARE, Zone 32, the guest speaker that he spoke of, that prevent the illegal use of drugs, alcohol, and tobacco, will be implemented and have been implemented already. Use prevention-based interventions such as redirection for positive behavior and implementation of restorative practices. And I don't know if you've heard of restorative practices, but we've had a lot of training on that at the K1 and DAEP. So that's just a different form of discipline that is more on the positive side instead of disciplining with negative behaviors, but positive behavior supports. We will look at training for grades 2 and 3 in the future. On performance objective 2, the community safety plan. As always, we'll conduct appropriate safety drills and training, and this year the students and staff through the last 2 years have been trained in the ALICE training that Officer Bose and his team have provided for everyone. Goal 4, the college and career readiness. Performance 1, we will be working to increase participation in AP, dual credit, and career technology classes, to increase career tech offerings that offer certifications. And Ms. Clark, our high school counselor, is charting student progress to accomplish college readiness standards in college career military readiness, and she calls those students who need that support. So she has the very large spreadsheet, and she's keeping up with each and every student to make sure that they are meeting those accomplishments. Also, you can prep elementary and middle school students to be prepared for careers, and here's what we're doing. Elementary campuses expose students to the community through field trips, career speakers and other activities, and a career investigations class for 8th grade, use of career cruising, an online portal, and guest speakers and participation in career fairs transition students from middle school to high school. And you've got, the rest of it is pretty long and significant. If you have any questions.
Any questions? Okay, we're going to need a motion to approve the district improvement plans made by Joel, seconded by Bo. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Now we'll move to item E, consideration and approval, longevity incentive for employees.
As Ms. McNeil mentioned earlier, each year we have a SHARS reimbursement. That stands for School Health and Related Services. And for students to qualify for SHARS, they have to qualify for Medicaid, and we provide them some type of service, whether some examples of that would be like OT, PT, speech therapy, counseling, things of that nature. So this year we had some money, like she mentioned, that was reimbursed for the past several years. And with that money, we can use it for the co-op fund balance, or we can use it for other items. And I would like to give our employees the longevity incentive. And this is something that we try to give out around the holidays. And so we have 457 employees. So with the incentive, the way that it's set up, it comes out to $117,550. And with your approval, I would like to give this to our employees with their November paychecks. This can be done in two ways. It can be each employee can receive an actual check, and I know in the past some of you have gone to the campuses and passed those checks out, or it can be put into their check as an automatic deposit.
Is the taxation going to be the same on that?
Melissa?
It's taxed higher because it's supplemental pay.
If it's separate?
But it's not just separate. I mean, even if it were in the check, that portion would be taxed at a little extra.
So it's going to be the same if it's a separate check like we handed out that year, or if it's put into the, it will be the same. What's the easiest?
Definitely direct deposit. We can even do it separately, you know, and you can actually pass out the direct deposit slip for that. With the candy cane.
It depends on if they want to pass it out.
I move that we do this however Melissa feels like is the best. Easiest or whatever, just so they know that we appreciate them.
Okay, we have a motion made by Sheila and seconded by Bo. Is there any further discussion? Do we have anyone abstaining from this vote?
I'll
Red
abstain.
and Joel. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 6F, consideration approval of transportation. Mr. Watson.
Oh.
Did you tell them the amount? So you kind of...
No, I did not. Okay, so Mr. Watson's kind of piggybacking off of what we were talking about earlier with the SHARS money. Our total refund was $243,844.46. So the longevity incentive amount will be taken from this, and then he's going to explain to you what we're going to do with the rest.
And just to add on that amount there, to just give you a quick history, and I know John and Ms. Stewart also told you about the SHARS money. About 4 years ago, the three or four superintendents that were on the co-op decided to start leaving that SHARS money in the fund balance for special education. And it worked out all right for, like, take for instance, like Prairie Land, where they got back like $39,000 something, and then they had to pay this deaf ed $34,000. So it was nearly a wash for them. And so I can understand why they left that in there. But when it came to Northmar, we were going to leave $243,000 on the table in the especially fund balance, instead of recouping that money and putting it in where we could use it for anything. And so that's why we decided to do that, because it's more beneficial for North Lamar to do it that way. Okay. Last board meeting, I told you that I was proposing to the board to buy 3 new buses and 2 vans. They did approve that. And so the total amount was for 2 of the 14 passenger buses, and if you've seen the smaller sped buses, that's what we're talking about. It was $131,860, and 1 42 passenger sped, and that's the bigger sped buses, was $97,100, and then 2 vans was together was $50,100. So it was a total of $279,060 to buy all 5 of those vehicles, and it's all would be coming out of the co-op fund balance that had been built up over the years from us leaving our monies in there. Okay. Now, the SHARS money that Mr. was talking about, since we did recoup a pretty good bit amount, just give you a little history on our white fleet. That is the fleets, that's 4 Suburbans and 2 vans that the district owns. The Suburbans, the mileage is 185, 195, 204, and 214. That's the vehicles that's for our personnel to go places. We have 2 vans. One of them's got 115,000, one of them's got 158,000. So, needless to say, we were in need of some more white fleet so that we can send our personnel off somewhere and feel safe that they're going to get there and back. Okay? So, with some of this money, we looked at how we could be the most efficient, and we talked about buying 2 cars, Impalas, and 1 Suburban. That would give us 3 newer vehicles. And from that money would come out to a total of $97,767. I want to back up to the SPED. We got 2 vans. Now we've used some of our vehicles when the SPED buses were broke down. We've used the Suburban, and we've used a van to run those routes. And so when we approved that, I got the other superintendents to agree, if we get into a bind where nobody's using SPED vehicles and we need another van, that they've given us permission to use that van if we need to too. So it's a working relationship with our other districts. So it's going to help us with our white fleet too. So at this time we're proposing that the $279,060, because y'all have to, because we're the fiscal agent, you have to approve this too. Even though the board of the co-op approved to do this, since we're the fiscal agent, you have to approve it also. But a recommendation to approve that, plus the 2 Impalas and Suburban for that $97,767, which is a total of $376,827. Yes, sir.
Where are these vehicles housed at? All right here at North Lamar?
Yes, they keep them over at the bus barn. They're over parked over by the fence over there.
All of them? The one behind Goodman that sits out there at night?
That is what the SPED co-op bought for the personnel at Goodman, because they have to go to different places, and so the employees in Goodman use that.
If that thing is stolen, who's going to pay for it?
Well, that'd be our insurance.
Well, if our insurance, shouldn't it be in that locked-in fenced area?
It could be there.
What's the purpose of parking it down?
I guess it's their convenience.
I mean, through my experience, it can get vandalized right there real easily.
It could.
Or stolen.
It could.
So they need to move it to the fence.
We can do that.
I don't have a problem buying them if we're going to take care of them, okay?
But that one was bought with the
well, that's why
co-op money, but it's still.
I had been told that, that's why I'm asking you, sir.
Yeah.
Not putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no.
So the total vehicles, 2 cars, 1 Suburban, and the buses, what?
Okay.
The total.
SPED part, there was
Okay.
2 14 passenger buses, which
Okay.
is $131,860.
Okay.
You got there?
Okay.
And so that top.
So we're getting
total
2,
on the co-op,
1, and 2. Okay, cool.
and then the bottom one is from our money that we recovered from the short.
Yeah.
So do we need one motion to purchase them all? I need
Yes, you do want to do all.
one motion to approve purchase made by Christie, second by Alicia. Is there any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Okay, item G, consideration and approval, TASB Regulation Resource Manual, update 60.
Update 60. We don't actually have to approve anything because all of it's legal, and so all we have to approve is local. But I did want y'all to get updated because two of the things pertain to you guys. I don't know if you've looked over the ones, but BBD exhibit, that's board member training and orientation. It says based on House Bill 403, every 2 years, trustees must complete 1 hour of training on identifying, reporting potential victims of sexual abuse, human trafficking, and other maltreatment of children. And so that exhibit kind of tells you where you can go to the web page for board members' responsibilities, which has information on board training and orientation. So I just want to make sure y'all are aware of that. And then on the BED exhibit, it just talks about the public participation. It changed a little bit, and the steward talked to y'all last time about that. It just kind of gives you some guidelines to follow on that. But the rest of it is just mostly replacing exhibits, either taking exhibits out or revising them. And so they're all legal, so you don't have to approve them. So I just want to give you an update on it.
There's local in there. Okay. So we're going to need a motion to approve the local.
I so move.
Made by Sheila, second by Bo. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Item 6H, consideration approval agreement between North Lamar ISD and Live Oak Public Finance LLC for financial advisory services in all matters related thereto.
Okay, Lucas Yonda is here with us from Live Oak Financial.
Got a brief presentation for y'all this evening. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to visit with y'all this evening. As I mentioned, my name is Luke Shonda. I'm Managing Director at Live Oak Public Finance. You'll see in the presentation, I've included a little bit of information about the firm, some of the districts in the area that we represent. A little resume information on myself, just the same, but really wanted to just open up dialogue with y'all more than anything else this evening, trying to see what questions y'all might have about potential, process related to bond election, things along those natures. And so, where our expertise is in school districts, I've had the pleasure of serving 3 separate school districts over the last 13 years as a CFO. Getting to work with a team of 8 has always been something I enjoy more than anything else. I get to go home every night to a second grade teacher as well, so education is one of those things in our DNA, I guess you could say. But what I've included, like I said, is more background information, anything else for y'all. The thing that I will definitely have interest in seeing some of y'all's thoughts, visiting with Kelly, visiting with Melissa to see if we're talking about a bond election, what kind of assets are we talking about acquiring, what type of term do we want to pay those bonds off during such period of time, because there's a number of factors that'll drive the word capacity. Communities are always very interested in what is the tax rate impact, and that'll depend on several things, on where do we feel property values may go for the next several years, how quickly do we feel some of the bonds should be paid off, and try to put all that together to see what's a financing plan that meets the district's needs. The thing about our firm that we take a lot of pride in is getting to know the community and getting to know exactly what the needs are, so this way we can structure the financing around what best serves the district. And so really from a high-level perspective, that's what we have for y'all this evening. And in there you'll see that if the district is considering an election, the earliest it could be called is for May 2020, and the last day to call on election will be February 14th. So that gives you an idea of just what that window may look like. Ends up being that an election wants to be pursued at a later date. We have to wait for the Attorney General's office to put out that calendar, but best guess would be probably middle of August that a November election cycle will be called for. Typically falls pretty consistent year after year, but other than that, that's really the information we have for y'all this evening. Let's see what questions y'all may have.
the agreements in your board packet. Did everyone have a chance to look at it? Does anyone have any questions for him tonight?
Not tonight.
Okay, we'll need a motion to approve the agreement. Made by Bo, seconded by Christie. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
What page is those agreements on? What page is it?
158. Item 6I, consideration and approval cast votes for Lamar County Appraisal District Board of Directors for 2020-21.
Okay, in your board book, you'll find your ballot sheet. This was provided to us by Jerry Patton, and I have to turn in to Mr. Patton, who will be putting our votes behind. You can see the candidates that are listed. David Dunman was our representative last year, so I would like to recommend putting our votes behind David Dunman, if you are all okay with that.
I move for David Dunman.
I second.
Motion made by Red, seconded by Sheila. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, we'll move to item number 7, executive session. The board will conduct a closed meeting in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551, subchapters D and E, Texas Government Code Section 551.074, 551.082, and 551.072 at 7:16.